Hi, this is Sarah and I welcome you to our second podcast, Radju EU, powered by Eurodesk. Along with me today I have Antonella Bugeja, and together with her we will be talking about activism. Just a brief introduction of Antonella, who is a 20-year-old medical student who is also the Secretary General of LGBTI+ Gozo and youth activist representative of Malta in a year-long youth campaign for the Conference on the Future of Europe. As a singer, pianist and dancer, she values using art for self-expression and to raise awareness on important topics. She believes that we all play a role in shaping our society and hopes that she can encourage positive changes in the current sexual health, mental health and environmental situations. Welcome, Antonella. How are you today?
Hi, thank you for welcoming me. I'm doing fine, and you?
I'm okay. It is our pleasure to have you here with us, to have actually a very strong activist. Antonella, I mentioned that you are a very, very strong activist. So what does activism actually mean to you? What is it that really makes you be an activist?
So for me, being an activist means that you are working for what you're passionate on. Although there are different forms of activism. Some are more formal, when you're in an organization, going to protest, talking to politicians. That is the more formal type of activism, which is, what's portrayed. However, to me, activism is also, sharing important posts on social media, starting important discussions with your friends on the topics that matter in our current local situations. That is also a very important form of activism because you're helping to form important ideas and raise awareness on important topics, such as sexual health and mental health amongst your society, which is ultimately what activism is about. It is about, helping to change society for the better based on the discussions and the issues raised. So that is what activism really means to me. For me, it's social media plays a really important role in activism at the moment. I mean, for me, I've learned so much just by scrolling on different, pages on Instagram that give you facts, that give you other people's stories. And this is what matters, especially in a society which is kind of transforming to a more digital platform as well.
This is a big question that many young people come up with. But how does one become an activist? How did you become an activist? Is there a protocol to follow? Is there a medium that one can reach to become an activist? How does one become an activist?
So this is a question that I've actually also gotten in my personal life. And the thing is, like in the beginning, before I kind of became an activist, I guess, I used to think that being an activist is only for law students or people who are really knowledgeable on just politics in general. But that is so not true. Activism is for everyone. For me personally, I just eventually started becoming more and more passionate on certain topics. And the LGBTI plus Gozo organization kind of introduced me to the world of activism. And that all started from a very, personal issue. It was, for me, they were a family at the time well, they still are, but I found a safe spot for something that was very personal for me. And through that, I started realizing that, you can help other people as well. And then when I went to uni, I joined the medical student organization and I started, sharing more important posts and meeting with different people who are also passionate about different things and realizing that through photography, through art, through conversations, we can change the world slowly. And that's what kind of made me an activist. It's just finding a passion for certain topics and wanting to change the society related to it. And that's all it takes, you don't need to fill in some sort of weird application. You don't need to be knowledgeable on everything. You just need to have a topic that that you're passionate about and work on that with other people and share your opinions.
Nice. So in reality, you just need to have passion and the motivation to actually work towards change. I mean, and somehow change is one of the pinnacle points of activism. However, change doesn't happen really fast. How do you, as an activist, deal with that?
It is a struggle sometimes. To this day, sometimes it feels like everything I'm doing can be for nothing. And, it's really easy to kind of focus on the big change that you want, which is important, but that takes years, decades to happen. Sometimes it would be happen when you're not even there anymore, I guess, but you still play the part. I think it's really important to, although, keep the big picture in mind, it's important to focus on the little achievements that you make along the way. Like, for example, for me, through the Stand for Something campaign, which I got thanks to you guys as well, when I went to Strasbourg, there were some people there that said that the mental health workshop I gave with the other activists from the Netherlands, inspired them to start something in their own home country. And in fact, they're working on starting an organization in Hungary now related to mental health. And in some of the other interviews I've had, I've gotten messages saying that I inspired them to get better and stuff like that. And, to me, that really means a lot and keeps me going, because it shows that I've helped at least one person, and it's a big thing. So although, yes, maybe I haven't changed a law, I haven't done something that big yet, but I know that I've helped people in their daily life, and that's all that matters. And that's why activism is so important, because you can so easily do that. Like, just by talking to your friend about something and being there for them and showing them that, yes, we are passionate about something and we're there to help people, that's also enough. And that's going to mean the world to one person.
Nicely put, Antonella. Can you mention maybe ways that you've participated in activism in the past? Maybe just give us some examples of how you participated and what was your aim, what were you working for?
Okay, so basically this year-long campaign that I'm still working on.
What's the name of the campaign again?
Stand for Something. That is a more formal way of activism, I guess. However, through it, I managed to meet, activists from all over Europe, and we discussed topics. We held workshops in the European Parliament together, where, again, we talked to different people. We gathered opinions and then discussed them with politicians. So that is a more formal activism, I guess. But to me, the end goal of this campaign is, in fact, just that: to gather young people's opinions, have fruitful discussions with them, and then ultimately discuss them with politicians and policymakers to try and help create a change. So again, that was a very fruitful thing, and it's still ongoing. So that was important. Apart from that, I was also the sexual health campaign coordinator in the medical student organization, where, we conducted events related to the topic of sexual health and mental health. And there was a Q&A session with some psychologists working on the field, and also in the LGBT organization. So those were kind of the more formal forms of activism that I took part of. However, apart from that, for example, I worked with a specific photographer, Ines Barr, on a mental health photo shoot where we kind of portrayed different mental illness experiences that we've had through photography. And even that, I got a lot of positive feedback through that, that...
In fact, I was going to ask you, how did other young people respond to the work that you have carried out?
I've gotten a lot of positive feedback on it, especially, for example, the photo shoot. Even from the other activists themselves, they said, they showed the photos to their friends, and through that they started a conversation on mental health, and they kind of really connected with the photos, which to me meant a lot. Sometimes, for example, with the Stand for Something campaign, I think 2 Sundays ago, I had an event in Valletta for World AIDS Day in collaboration with the Medical Student Association. And there were some, people that you try to talk to them and they wouldn't really care much and they'd keep on going. And some people were skeptical on like, how is this going to ultimately change the bigger picture? So there are some, kind of sometimes it doesn't always work out in the best way, and you try to communicate with these people, and sometimes it turns into a fruitful conversation where you kind of both give hope to each other. Other times it just doesn't work out, but it's okay because, everyone's different and you're not going to click with everyone, and there have been, for example, with the LGBT organization, we wrote a sexual health policy paper, and there were some rather mean comments on it and in relation to the LGBT community in general. So you are going to get some negative feedback here and there. But the
Nothing stops you from doing what you really are passionate about.
Yeah, when you know that this is something that's important to you and has the potential to help others, that's what keeps you going, and you learn from the negative feedback as well. Like it's important to kind of take that and reflect on that as well to see how you can improve your activism and yourself in general.
Indeed. And in what ways do you think that young people can actually create policy change? I mean, now you've been involved for quite a while in different areas. So what's your point of view about this?
So obviously going into politics is a big way of doing that. However, it's not for everyone and it's not the only way. I saw that different, organizations lobbying for something that they're passionate about really helps create change, because obviously, I mean, politicians to a certain extent are controlled by the votes, and they obviously care about what the society wants. So like organizations joining together to kind of share their voice and show that this is something that the society really wants will motivate politicians to work harder to change that. So I think being part of NGOs and going to protests and taking part in different events is really important. And also I really value artists. I mean, as I said, for example, this photo shoot that I had done really helped people as well. So, and artists have a lot of passion, which I really value. So, creating photography, songs, paintings, poems, anything that, spreads awareness on the topic of discussion is really important as well. And sometimes even a short film, for example, in Gozo, I think earlier this year, a girl shot a short film related to the overconstruction happening there. And it became, a topic of discussion amongst young people and elderly in Gozo and even in Malta. So it shows how just one form of creativity raised a lot of discussions. So there are all these different ways, and I think it's just important to ultimately figure out what kind of person you are and how you can contribute. But every step matters.
Nice. Antonella, I have a bit of a question which might be considered ambiguous, but it does cross my mind. Have you ever been part of a conversation when someone changed your mind about an important topic which is very close to your heart? I mean, they did not try to, but through having a dialogue with them, it kind of made you question things.
So more than this, I have a lot of experiences where people have there were topics like climate change and even the topic of immigration. I never really kind of thought much about them, but then meeting people who have these topics, are really passionate about these topics, really made me kind of see how important they are and want to learn more about them and contribute in any way I can. And there were many different experiences where this happened, where I was kind of very uneducated about a topic, or I didn't really care as much about it. And then I met people who were really passionate about it and learned that, okay, this is a big part of our society and I want to learn more. Apart from that, I think sexual health in general, I came from a very religious background and didn't understand a lot of things, even in relation to HIV, for example, which is something that I now advocate for and know that it's not just a gay disease kind of, and that even the fact that people with HIV now can live a perfectly normal life. Like, I did not know that until a few years ago. So I was kind of going around being a bit oblivious. And even bisexuality, for example, I talked to quite a lot of people to try and help them understand the topic, like the term itself. But for me, I needed to see people who lived through that experience and who are fully accepting of themselves to help me understand better in the beginning, because we all have these judgments from when we're young, and it's hard to kind of let them go. And even for me, there was a lot of internalized homophobia, for example, as well, and by talking to people it helped change that. So yeah, there were a lot of experiences like that, I think.
And at this point in time where you're at, do you think that persuasion plays an important role in what you do?
So the word persuasion kind of scares me a bit, because it implies kind of someone just really pushing an agenda onto someone else, when in reality I think the best kind of ways of changing things in relation to activism is by having educational conversations on it and listening. Like, what I really learned is that if there's someone with a different opinion from you, if you try to kind of impose your opinions onto them, it's not going to work. But if you just listen to them for a while, listen to everything they have to say, and then understand that, show them you understand, but also add your opinion, it's going to actually make them think, because they're going to feel heard. So in reality, I think listening is a bit more or just as important as persuasion. But then in terms of policymakers and stuff like that, then yes, we do need to listen to them as well, obviously, but we do need a bit more of a protest and kind of persuasion sort of things. But in general, I think listening and understanding other points of views and what everyone has to offer is really important.
A very, very interesting conversation, I must say. Tonight I've had with me Antonella Bugeja, who is a youth activist who has worked on different campaigns and is currently also working on a pan-European campaign called #StandForSomething. Antonella, I would love to thank you and hope that you will be able to join us in future podcasts. And I thank you as well, the listeners, for engaging with us during this podcast, Radju EU, powered by Eurodesk. I wish you, Antonella, a very good evening, and I wish you, the followers, a good evening as well.
Thank you.